Welcome back to another FC24 career mode video. Today we're talking about the things you should not do in career mode. If you're a career mode veteran, you probably know all these things that I'm going to talk about today, but hopefully you do find something useful from this video. I'm probably going to do 2 videos going over the things you shouldn't do, so there's going to be a lot of helpful tips here. If you do enjoy the video, please leave a like for me and make sure you subscribe for more FC career mode content. One thing you should not do in FC24 career mode is play as a real manager, but pick a manager that doesn't have a real face. For me, that is a complete waste of time. If we start in the Premier League, you can see that it's mostly covered. There's a lot of real manager faces, so you might be inclined to pick one of these Premier League managers, but there is some managers that don't have the real face, and this is where things get ugly. Look at this, Postecoglou. Doesn't even look like him. You can give him a blue tie, you can give him a nice suit, you can give him grey hair, it still doesn't look like him. Who is this jabroni trying to be Postecoglou? I don't like it. I just can't pick a manager that has a fake face. It just doesn't matter. You know, you can give him the real name, the profile picture and all that, but it still doesn't look right at the end of the day. You might as well just create your own guy instead. Look at this. Luis Enrique has a generic face, waste of time there. And then you've got this one here from Dortmund, waste of time. And there's not really many managers that have a real face. Like I said, this feature works well if there's a manager that has a real face like Allegri. But then if you go and pick Inzaghi, it doesn't look right, you know, it just looks bad. So don't ever do this. Do not pick a manager that doesn't have a real face. You're wasting your time. Another thing you should not do in FC24 career mode is start a new career mode save and not download the latest squads. Downloading the latest squads ensures that you have the latest player stats applied, transfers applied, and the latest players and player faces in the game. Obviously, if you've tinkered with a squad, you might have done some of your own manual transfers. You don't need download latest. You can just use current squads. If you want to use default squads that came when the game first came out, then you use initial squads. But for the most part, I think a lot of people just would use the latest squads whenever they start a new save. So make sure you do download the latest. Otherwise, you're not using the current up-to-date rosters and stats and all that kind of stuff there. Another thing you should not do in career mode is ignore the team strategy section. This is where you can get your coaches for your club and also set a tactical vision for your club. This is going to help develop your players a bit more, grow your players a bit more. You can keep your vision on standard, but it's sort of just a balanced approach. You might want to pick one of these like wing play, tiki-taka, gegen pressing, park the bus, counter-attack, and kick and rush. It's up to you. Usually I do gegen pressing, but you might want to play around with it and see if anything else works for you. So let's say you do gegen pressing. The next important thing that you should not ignore is hiring coaches for your club. If you don't hire any coaches for your club, you're not getting the best out of your player development. If you pre-ordered the game, there's a 5-star expert coach waiting for you. But if you didn't, there's still other coaches you can pick from. And one thing you should not do in career mode, once again, is pick a coach that doesn't fit your tactical vision. I don't know how much this does impact the game, but it is recommended to pick the people that have the same vision as you. So we can't use this expert coach because he doesn't have our vision, but we do have these guys here that have the gegen pressing vision. You can tell by the logo. Another thing you should not do, once again, is put a coach in the wrong slot. So let's say we've got Davey here. You can see he's got 5-star midfield, and then 3-star attack and 3-star defense and 3-star goalkeeping. You can put them there, but you're not getting the most out of the stars. You want to put him where he has the most impact, which would be the midfield, and you can boost the midfield up by 5 stars there. And another thing you should not do is leave open positions for your coaches, because once again, you're not maximizing the player development. You can see we've got 12 more positions, so you might want to fill that all up by hiring more coaches as well. Do not ignore this. Another thing you should not do in career mode is ignore the training plans. If you ignore the training plans, you might start getting emails in your inbox that sort of look like this from the assistant manager. Looks like Haaland's current training plan isn't really having enough impact. You might want to think about adjusting their schedule. If you're planning to include them in the lineup, you need a plan focused more on energy to ensure you get what you need from them in the next game. And it will tell you which players need to be sort of corrected. So let's get to the training plans here. You can see that we needed Haaland more on energy-focused plans, so we need to do that because obviously he's going to be a starter. He needs to rest more than he actually trains. Do not ignore this. You definitely need to go through each individual player, or you can just pick one here for your first 11 and then sort of apply it to a group. So you can do that, apply for the starting 11. At least pay attention to this because you don't want your players that are playing all the time to be on performance-focused plans. They're going to be really tired. Even balanced will keep them tired if they're playing midweek as well. So you need to rest them up a bit more. And obviously, if you don't touch your training plans, the sub players and reserve players aren't getting enough performance in, so their sharpness is going to be very low. So you might want to put them on more performance-based plans. I wouldn't recommend all-out performance, but maybe more performance-focused. You can apply that to the subs and reserves as well. So yeah, do not ignore this because all your players will be unbalanced and you're not going to get the best out of the players. It's all about finding the right mix between fitness and sharpness. Another thing you should not do in career mode is ignore the objectives from the board. This is basically the quickest way to get sacked. One of the first things you should actually do is go and check your board objectives, because this alters your confidence rating, and the lower this goes, the higher your chance of getting sacked. So there's no mucking around here. Some will be low, some will be critical depending on the club, and you have to go for each tile and read the objective. Some will be short term or long term. So for youth here, it says sign one player in your youth academy for the defender position. Then you've got brand exposure, get 12 clean sheets in the league, replace 3 players from the team. Continental success, they want to win the Champions League. Domestic, they want to win the Premier League and also the FA Cup. So basically they want a treble here. So it's very important that you take a look at these board objectives, because the less you fulfill of these, the higher your chance of getting sacked. Now, another thing you should not do on match day is ignore the press conferences. But another thing you should not do is, when you're in the press conferences, give negative answers. That's the worst thing you can do. The more positive your responses are, the better your team's morale will be, and also player morale will go up as well, and that's going to help with their performance as well. So you can tell by the icons that many answers here are positive, like these 3 seem to be positive based on the logos. So you don't really care about which one you pick here. You can see that the morale goes up to happy now, so that makes a big difference going into a game. This one's going to be about a player here, and we'll see if there's any negative ones. So that one is the negative one. You can see the different symbols there. So you don't want to pick that one. If you pick that one, that's not going to be beneficial to your player. As you can see, his morale goes down. So that's the one thing you want to avoid there. But you can boost it up once again by praising the player there, and that will help a little bit. So yeah, avoid the negative answers. This is the easiest way to boost up your team and player morale. Similar to press conference answers, you don't want to give negative responses in player chats as well. So we've got this example here from Akanji. This next game is so important for our season, boss. I feel really good and I'm sure I can do better than Stones if you give me the chance. You can see you'll get your chance. I'll think about it. I'll make the decisions. That is the negative response. You can tell by the logo there. If you want to boost the player's morale, obviously that is the right thing to do. You can pick those two. But if you're going to be picking this decision, it's going to negatively impact the player morale. We're going to do it here. It goes down to content. So yeah, the player doesn't like it. It's not the right thing to do. Another thing you should not do in career mode is ignore the post-match interviews. This is a way to boost your player and team morale once again. It's similar to the press conferences. And while we're here, another thing you should not do in career mode is give negative responses in this situation as well. You want to pick the positive ones to keep the morale higher. If you pick the negative ones like this, it's going to bring the morale down and it's going to hurt your team and player morale over time. So make sure you always pick those positive ones as well. And another thing you should not do in career mode is ignore the youth academy. The youth academy can sometimes come up with some hidden gems and some players that would be excellent in a few seasons' time for your team. You should check your youth academy straight away to see if there's any good players. Unfortunately, there's no homegrown talent feature this year, but you can scout for some new youth talent by going to the youth staff section in the transfer section. Send your scouts out to whatever country you want. You can even search up different positions that you would need for your team. Give him 3 months. And then he might come back with some good players that you could sign for your youth academy and then use them in your future starting 11 as well. If you've got a really tight budget, scouting youth players and also signing youth players for your team is a cheap way to get new talent into your team as well without breaking the budget.